So hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lucy and in today's video we are talking about the books that made me cry. So this could be a very long list. I have basically shortlisted this to my top 6 recommendations if you just want to have a little cry. I'm a highly sensitive person. Books, films, TV affect me so much. The other day, I cried listening to Taylor Swift's version of Love Story for the first time. So that's the level we're talking about, you know? But I have picked the best of the books that really did just like get it out of me, you know? Like emotionally destroyed me in the best way. So some of these are the end of series. So if you have not read the first books in these series, I will tell you what the first books are so that you can read those books and get that emotional payoff at the end. So before we get started on the tearjerkers, please do make sure you hit that subscribe button and that way you'll never miss a video upload from me. I've got some really good fun videos coming and I'm really excited about a lot of the content that I've got planned for this year. So do hit that subscribe button and make sure you have notifications turned on so that way you will never miss when I upload. Anyway, let's get on with it. Let's get on to the books that made me an emotional mess. So I feel like starting with this one because it is one of these books that has had the most emotional resonance. Like I just thought about this book for days afterwards. It is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. So guys, if you've read this book, you will know why it's in this list, why it made me cry so much. If you know the Greek myth, you know about the story of Achilles. What this story does a really good job of though is giving Achilles a story and a human side. And basically this is the story of Achilles and Patroclus, who was very well known to be his lover, his male lover. And their love story is just heartbreakingly beautiful in all the best ways. I'm getting emotional thinking about this. What is wrong with me? Anyway, this book brings out all of the feels. It's a very slow burn. There's a lot of kind of like hot and cold elements to the relationship. It is a very kind of like enduring, really deep-rooted love between Patroclus and Achilles. And I think that's what makes the emotional payoff so brilliant, is because you really come to feel Patroclus's like desperation and the love he has for Achilles. So that when it all kind of does resolve towards the end, it's like, whew, you need to lie down. As this is a standalone, I think this is the perfect book to read if you do just want an emotional, beautiful story of love. And it's also not that big either. Like it's, what, 300, 400 pages? And it is a pretty quick read, I think. So if you're looking for your next read and you haven't yet read The Song of Achilles, it is one of my favourite books ever, so please do read this book. And in terms of like the crying, I can't remember when it started, but when it hit me, it was quite intense. So look forward to that. Now the next book is one that is a conclusion to one of my favourite series of all time. This is Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. So this book is the conclusion of the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare, which is kind of a prequel-ish series to the Mortal Instruments. And this book explores the story of Will Herondale, who is a shadow hunter. He is based at the London Institute. If you know nothing about the shadow hunter world created by Cassandra Clare, basically it's like a urban fantasy series about Nephilim, shadow hunters, who are half human, half angel, and they basically are put on this earth to kill demons. So this is set in Victorian London and follows our main character Will and another main character called Tessa, and Tessa is one of my favourite characters in all of Cassandra Clare's stories. And the Infernal Devices series is one of my favourite series, like I said, not only because it's set in Victorian London, which is the perfect atmospheric setting, but the story at the heart of it is so fascinating. And the reason I cried so much at Clockwork Princess, I'm not going to spoil anything, there is something that happens that broke me inside to millions of little pieces. And honestly, Clockwork Princess is one of those conclusions to a trilogy where the most gut-wrenching scene happens and I wasn't okay for hours afterwards. I was still sobbing hours after I read this book. Like, the last few pages are just stained with my tears. The emotional payoff in this series is incredible. Over 3 books, you learn to love each of the characters so much, and I think that is why you get that emotional kick to the face that Clockwork Princess delivers. Oh my god, I can't even tell you, like, even thinking of the scene, making me a bit emotional. So yeah, this video is a good one for the emotions. I urge you all to read this series if you haven't yet. The first book is Clockwork Angel, and Clockwork Princess is my favourite conclusion to a series ever because it's just so powerful, and what a conclusion. If you've read this book, I hope you'll agree with me that it is such a tearjerker. Let me know down in the comments if you didn't cry over Clockwork Princess. I would be baffled to know if you didn't cry. Okay, so the next book that made me cry for hours, it is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas. Yes, this is the old cover. I think I like these covers so much better, guys, but I am considering debating getting the new look covers just so that my collection is complete. Anyway, if you're unsure what this book is, this is the conclusion of the first part of the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. It starts with A Court of Thorns and Roses, and this is the end of Feyre's story, who is our main character throughout all of those 3 books. There is a scene that happens towards the end of this book that it kind of like broke me inside, and I was sobbing from that point onwards, basically. This book meant so much to me when I was reading it because this series became my favourite series of all time. The second book in particular, I didn't cry over that book, but A Court of Mist and Fury is one of my favourite books of all time. And so this basically was so high in my expectations that I think like finishing this character arc of Feyre's, it just ripped me to shreds. Like, by the end of this book, I was sobbing, I was emotional, I was like numb after reading this book because I'd cried so much. I'm not going to spoil, but there is one scene in this, like I said, that is so shocking and just so like unexpected that you can't help but just cry. So if you have not read A Court of Wings and Ruin, if you've not read the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, I really would recommend it. This is high fantasy. It is about a world of fae, and it is about our main character Feyre, who starts this series as a mortal. It goes through her having her own journey and basically trying to save the world of fairies. So it's a pretty hefty book, this conclusion, but it's worth every single page. Like, every single page is beautiful, and I think that is what made for the hugely emotional like last few chapters. Like, everything just rounded off and everything felt so final, and to me that just like destroyed my little heart. So there you go. Court of Wings and Ruin, one of my favourite books ever. I love this series and it broke my heart many times. Okay, so next up we have a very surprising book that I didn't expect would make me cry, but it really did. It is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. So this book is one of like the best books I've ever read. It is about a girl called Kaya who is living in 1960s America, and she lives in the middle of nowhere on this like marsh, and she basically is called the Marsh Girl because like people have come to fear her, and she kind of lives outside of society. And then when a body is found in the marsh, everyone starts to look at Kaya. And this is essentially a murder mystery, but it is so much more than that. It is about nature, appreciating nature. It is about friendship and living a solitary life and learning to love. And this is the most beautiful book I think I've ever read, and I urge you all to read this if you haven't read it. You will love it. The ending in particular is one of those situations where I was crying and then a massive plot twist happened and I was like gasping and sobbing, and it was just all the emotions at once. There is a plot twist at the end of this book that is so mind-blowing. I just have no words. It's incredible. The payoff at the end is so good. It is a rare book and it's so poetic and so beautiful. And Kaya is such a solitary figure that you just can't help but root for. And when her story concludes by the end of the book, you know, you have gone on this emotional story with her throughout this entire book, reading about her difficult childhood. And then by the end of this book, when her story concludes, it is like so emotional. And I think that's what made this book like bittersweet for me, is that I just didn't want to let go of this story. And that was also why I felt so emotional. So I think this is a tearjerker. Like, I think probably some people wouldn't cry at this, but I'm an emotional wreck, so of course I'd cry at this, you know? Okay, so the next tearjerker is a classic, and you might not think immediately this is a tearjerker, but boy, when I tell you that I cried at this, I cried at this. It is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This is the gorgeous penguin, I think it's the V&A edition, but anyway, it's stunning. Little Women, I think it needs no introduction. It is one of those classics that is so well loved, and I'm sure you will have seen the film adaptation recently, the Greta Gerwig one. Oh my god, that film breaks me every time. The amount of times I've sobbed over that film, guys. It's just right that I sob over the book, of course. So I actually read this last year for the first time, and the emotions I felt reading this towards the end, because even though there is a degree of separation in terms of the writing, like, I think obviously it's not written in first person, so you don't get like an immediate emotional response. But reading about Beth's character is enough to make everyone weep, surely. Like, I still get emotional thinking about Beth. And the film as well, I would urge you all to watch if you want a good cry, because it's just so heartwarming and endearing, and equally the pain of a certain character's death will never leave me. Like, I think that's what's surprising about reading this book. It's like, even though I know what happens, like, I'd watched the film before I read this book, even though I knew what happened, it still broke me. So there we go. Also, it's worth noting that in this volume, Little Women, the character death doesn't happen yet, but you know it's coming. I think it's only in the second volume, Good Wives, I think it's called, is that you know who passes away, and it's quite emotional. Anyway, I just wanted to flag Little Women as a book that always breaks my heart in the best way, and always surprises me when I do get so emotional, because I forget just how much I love these characters. Like, each and every one of the March siblings has my heart. So there you go. And I think I need to watch the film again because I'm ready for a good cry. And finally, we have a book that a lot of you guys might not have read. I've not seen a lot of people talk about it here on BookTube. It is The Light We Lost by Jill Santopolo. So this book was published a few years ago in the UK. This is the gorgeous, gorgeous UK jacket. So, disclaimer, this is published by the publishing house that I work for, but this is genuinely one of those books that made me cry like I've never cried before. Everybody who's read this book has just said that it is the ultimate weep fest. So this book is about two characters called Lucy and Gabe, and this follows 13 years of their love story. They meet for the first time on September 11, 2001, as the two towers are burning, and the awful kind of chaos that's happening around them. They find each other on that day, and that's when their love story begins. And over the next 13 years, we watch their lives, sometimes together, sometimes torn apart, but they always come back to each other over those 13 years. And when I tell you that this is the most bittersweet love story, it's actually soul destroying how beautiful their love story is, but also how doomed it is as well. So let me just say, if you want to cry your eyes out and literally be a void after reading a book, read this one because it will tear you apart in the very, very best way. You root for their love story the whole way through, and it is just such a bittersweet book, and it's just so beautifully written. Like, Jill's writing is stunning. I adore this book, and I will recommend it to everyone if you want a love story that is so sweeping and so huge. Like, this is just that book. Also, if you don't cry at this book, I'm not going to say there's something wrong with you, but I will be shocked. This is my challenge to you. I want you to read this book, and I dare you not to cry, okay? And if you've done it, let me know in the comments below. But I sobbed like a baby during the end of this, and it was emotional. You know what? It was emotional. So please do read this book if you're looking for a completely soul-destroying love story that will move you, and you won't be able to stop thinking about this book for hours after. So guys, I've just relived myself crying at every single one of those books, so quite an emotional experience for me, not gonna lie. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really, really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, why not click that subscribe button for more weekly videos? And I'll see you very, very soon in my next one. Bye guys.